what our plans are for today, starting with myself going over, the program and the goals of the program, followed by Kevin, who will give us an update on the FathomNet database. And then I will jump in and talk a little bit about FathomVerse. I realized that last year, the same time that we had this workshop, FathomVerse did not exist. And so a lot has changed, and I'm very excited to share that with you all. We then have a break for about 10 minutes. We'll see. I can imagine some content leaking into that session or that segment. But then we will, break up into smaller groups. Thank you for those of you who filled out that survey that gave us a better sense of how many people are going to be in each of these breakouts. We have 4 different ones. The first one is how to submit data to the FathomNet database, and Brian and Laura will be taking that on. Then the second one is verifying labels in the FathomNet database. So, verifying things, changing annotations, and myself and Giovanna will be in that group. Then the third group is using FathomNet models, and Kevin will be in that room also with Izzy. We forgot to add your name, Izzy. And then last, but certainly not least, number 4 is Outreach with FathomVerse, where both Lily and Emily will talk about some of the new, interesting, awesome features in FathomVerse that will actually enable outreach, and sharing your group or your institution's activities with the broader FathomVerse audience. So, as you hear us go over some of this information, think about what might be the most interesting breakout room for you to join, but also keep in mind, you don't have to clone yourselves. We will be recording all of these breakouts so that you can watch them later on the FathomNet YouTube channel. And so I might have shown you guys the wrong slides. Give me a second. No, I didn't. That's the right one. I think you all are looking at the video, correct? Great. And my internet's been a little buggy, so hopefully you all are getting a really nice continuous stream. But this video, I think a lot of us in this room are familiar with these kinds of media. Lots of imagery or video that's being collected to do surveys of various environments in the ocean. This one here is what the Monterey Bay Canyon looks like right up against some cliff walls. And our community as a whole faces this really significant challenge to convert this information, from lovely pixels, but to something actionable, right? So something that tells us who's there, how many are there, what are the types of relationships they might have either with themselves or substrate. And unfortunately, that process has been largely manual up until this point. And so, we already are aware of these challenges of data conversion and having that convert to something useful. And not everybody has the resources nor the time, never mind the expertise to, do that kind of conversion. And we also know that given some of the challenges that the ocean faces, there's this massive need to increase our capacity for doing kind of these observations, which requires, right, conversion. So how do you do that? And so what our community is dealing with, right, is this situation where we might be drowning in data, but that really provides an incredible opportunity for us to, seek out new approaches that could solve really, really big and challenging problems. And so I would say this motivating factor led to a significant amount of funding from the US's National Science Foundation to look at how might we be able to do this in collaboration with the newest tools coming out of the computer science or computer vision research worlds, and that would incorporate things like artificial intelligence. And so when we kicked off this project, we first started with these use-inspired research, which involved interviews, at least 1 hour-long interviews with a variety of different participants, representing, academic or research organizations, either industry or for profits. We also spoke with individuals in government agencies, not just in the US, but also abroad. Lots of nonprofits, folks involved in data governance, also engagement, education. We also talked with a group of enthusiasts, specifically the live stream oceanographic community, and then also groups that deal with this challenge, but in different contexts. So for instance, like terrestrial data or camera trap data that's been used to try and, measure terrestrial biodiversity. And so what that effort culminated in was 38 user interviews. We also held concurrent workshops around game development. And then of course, by hosting these workshops, these FathomNet workshops over the years, we've been able to aggregate and collate a lot of different feedback and information that, when we boil all of it down to, we found some really consistent themes. And the first big theme that emerged from this process was that there was a clear lack of collaboration between organizations that operate in the space. And so just a sample of some of the different quotes that we received from these interviews was that, the main stumbling block is that the marine community is collecting data in silos. And that's really problematic because, there might be people out there who have the expertise or the energy or the time to, address those challenges or work on them. And, frankly, global solutions like the one we need requires global perspectives. There's also been a lack of accessible tools, right? The reality is that, all of us are incredibly busy. We don't have time to necessarily pick up a whole new area of expertise in order to complete this task. And so for some groups, unless a tool is super simplified, only 1 to 2 people should be required within an organization to do something like this or have the technical skills to use it. And then the third one was when we started this process, there was a clear lack of AI knowledge and what it could actually do for you. Something that we kept hearing over and over again was that you could train a model and you could run it on all your data, and once you've trained it, you're done. But in actuality, these models are not accurate all the time. Anytime they come across situations that are different, like out of distribution, these models might perform more poorly. And so this interpretation that these models are perfect or perspective that these models are perfect is really inaccurate. Especially since they rely on human understanding or human data in order to train. And then what we did learn, though, is that there was lots of different uses for AI. The fact that we as a community have collected years of data, terabytes of data. Those video may have been watched, but they're not annotated. So there's these treasure troves of information that we could potentially unlock if we could process that information really quickly. And then the last thing is that visual data, we're talking about visual data here as part of FathomNet now, but it's very, very clear that when you collect that data, they have a lot of different uses beyond just maybe the original intention. So the idea is that, if you are a coral researcher and you are doing coral surveys, while you're collecting those visual surveys, you're also collecting information about the rest of the ecosystem. And so while you might be interested in corals, there might be fish biologists who could also benefit from that data. So if there's a way to share that more readily, that would be really important. And so we really shouldn't be thinking about data being optimized for the first user's needs, but in fact, it does have indeed multiple uses. And then another really incredible finding that we learned was that if video data were more available, then individuals could assist a lot more. And these could be individuals who might not have, formal training, but have acquired knowledge just through their interests in the ocean. So considering all of these things, that's where the FathomNet program emerged. For those of you who have joined us in previous years, you might remember a phrase or a name, Ocean Vision AI, and that is no longer. We have co-opted the FathomNet name. But basically, the goal of the FathomNet program is to think about how do we pull in visual data And how do we utilize these, state-of-the-art machine learning algorithmic pipelines that enable us to very quickly insert human verification where we need so that we can get annotated information out. And really the big challenge here is thinking about how do you get humans and AI working really well together, especially when, humans have lots of different expertise, right? There might be experts that have, computer vision, a focus, or experts in taxonomy, individuals who can look at an image and tell you precisely what genus or species those animals come from. There aren't a lot of experts in the world, unfortunately. But then across the spectrum, there's actually quite a number of enthusiasts in the world who, enjoy nature documentaries or just love going to aquariums or, just for whatever reason, oh yeah, they go and watch all of these live streams of ROV dives of various organizations around the world. And they have amassed, significant expertise and knowledge, but could also be helpful or beneficial to this process of generating human verification. And so what we've been focusing on for the last couple of years is how might we engage these different audiences to help us with this human verification problem. So the first area that we focused on, so originally the namesake of the program was FathomNet. We're now calling it the FathomNet Database. And that was built for the experts. And so what the FathomNet database is, and we hope to continually grow it, is for it to be a global image and machine learning model repository. The idea being that you can upload as well as host visual data and machine learning models through this, this solution. And really what we're trying to do is create a publicly available labeled image data set that allows you to search, view metadata, make changes to the annotations that you see so that we can get really refined, high quality data set that we can use to then train models and make those models available to the community. And really what this is also a really neat way, an easy way to aggregate taxonomic expertise across the board. One of the challenges that we have in our community, right, is sharing data and also making it visible to lots of different people. And so that's what we're hoping the database allows. Two big things worth highlighting is that we've entered in an agreement with NOAA to host submitted data for a very long time from contributors all over the world. So that pipeline is actually in place. And so I believe Brian and Laura will be talking about how you will do that in one of the breakouts. And then the last aspect of this is that there's a FathomNet Kaggle competition. So every year, fortunately, through the incredible network of individuals at the Computer Vision and Pattern Recognition's fine-grained visual categorization workshop community, we're able to host a Kaggle competition using data within FathomNet. And we actually have one happening right now focused on taxonomic hierarchy. And so, if you're interested in the FathomNet database, there's a lot of different pieces to it. Like I said, Laura and Brian is going to walk you through how you might be submitting data to the FathomNet database. Myself and Giovanna will cover verifying labels and augmenting labels that are found in the database. And then finally, Kevin with Izzy will be talking about how do you use those models that we've trained on this data set for your various use cases. And there are a number of models that will be worth checking out in that session. The second aspect of this program that we think is more focused for individuals who actually have visual data that they want to process is called the FathomNet portal. And what this is it provides access to machine learning data pipelines where, if you have visual data, you can upload it, you can then host your visual data there and create public and private repositories to have people collaborate with you and, as well as using these machine learning models to fully annotate your visual data. But really the big goal here, right, is we want to make it as easy as possible for people to access machine learning models and training data, but also exporting your data to the appropriate, either databases or, for your own personal use, push that data to FathomNet database so that it can all be used by the community. And so while we're not going to be focusing very much on the portal now, if that's something you're interested in checking out, I suggest using that QR code. Right now, we are in an early adopter phase, so people are, kicking the tires to find out if this is going to be helpful for their data pipeline challenges. And then last, but certainly not least, is FathomVerse. And so FathomVerse, the idea here is that we could crowdsource annotations through gaming by engaging a very broad audience, primarily made up of ocean lovers and animal lovers, armchair explorers, but really underserved communities in ocean science. And the way we're able to do that is by a mobile phone app that you can download for free on either iOS and Android devices. This app has specifically been designed for individuals high school age and up, although I am aware of some precocious middle schoolers also playing this game. And so far, we've been really impressed, surprised, excited by the uptake of the game. And this is not updated numbers, which you'll see in slides later. And I wanted to highlight that Lily and Emily are going to be talking about the most recent update of FathomVerse, which we launched, I think 2 weeks ago, and some of the new features that will enable, like outreach with different groups or within the community, like badges and campaigns, etc. So if you're interested in that, please do check it out. And so with all of these solutions, right, the goal is then we can push all of this information and address this human verification bottleneck that our community is facing when it comes to processing this visual data. And then before I open it up to questions, I just wanted to highlight some impact that the program has already had so far. Combined all these different platforms that I shared with you, we have more than 30,000 users, which is really exciting. I mean, FathomVerse alone has more than 30,000. Within the database, and I want to say that these numbers were from a few weeks ago. I know that the database already has more annotations on the order of like 330,000 annotations, but it also contains more than 100,000 images. And from the FathomNet models, we've also tabulated more than 1,000, almost 2,000 downloads. So people are using the models that we've created. And then within FathomVerse already, we've achieved about 17 million annotations. But then when we think about, the reach, we've got a lot of website users, a lot of different followers and subscribers, a number of media mentions. Something that I'm really excited by and proud of is that we have users representing 176 different countries. And while that's not every country, this is just getting us so much closer to our goal, right, of creating a global solution to address this challenge. And then on the right, you can see, publications and workshop registrants that have been helping us to grow the FathomNet program. And so anyways, again, think about which kinds of breakout sessions you might be interested in attending. And then I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, but keep in mind the goal is for us to essentially have models that could be run on visual data in the ocean, anywhere it's collected, to then help us, very quickly process this information and have this data then be used to inform, how we use the ocean, how we interact with it. Evidence-based decision making is so incredibly important in these times. And so, that is the real hope, is that together we can help accelerate that process for the entire community. So with that, if you have any questions, please let me know.
Kakani, it looks like there's one in the Q&A section, but there's no mic access for the participants right now.
Yeah, if you can put it in the chat, I think that's going to be the easiest. What is the plan to prioritize to which doc science videos will get this collaboration? So I think this question, George, so what is the plan? So the plan is really dependent on the, individuals who have their visual data, right? We're not basically saying, you know, you go out and collect your visual data and you should be prioritizing these different animal groups or different places. It's more, I think, up to the user, or sorry, the data originator to make decisions around what data it is that they need to be prioritizing. And one example is, thinking about FathomVerse, where more recently we've been, getting data contributions from NOAA and Schmidt Ocean Institute. And one of the things, among others, and then one of the things that Schmidt has done is like evaluated, what dives do they already have plans for? And I see Corrine, you're here too. She has done this hard work of evaluating which dives are already planned on being annotated by scientists, which legacy data might not have a similar plan. And then for those dives, then pushing those data into FathomVerse so that game players can at least help us generate annotations, albeit at a higher taxonomic level, so that we at least have some information that we can gather or gain from those contributions. So I hope that helps answer this question. And then Ramesh, your question about the standard keys used to annotate organisms throughout FathomNet. So there's actually a couple, and either Kevin or Brian, do you guys want to answer that question?
Sure, I'm happy to.
Okay.
So currently we have two major keys that are used. The main one that most people will be interested is worms. Every month we get a fresh copy of the worms database, and we load it into one of our custom servers to make those names accessible to our tools. Then we also have a second one, which is provided by Ambari, and it's really focused on the west coast of California, and you can choose from either of those right now. I will mention that we can plug in other keys as needed as we get input from the community. So we are looking at things like the Katami codes and other keys.
And then me, you have a question about guidelines and the resolutions of data you accept for FathomNet. I know that Brian and Laura will probably get into the nitty-gritty of that in their breakout sessions. Right now, we don't have any fixed requirements because, for instance, in Bari data, we go anywhere from standard definition up to 4K visual data. So we don't have any guidelines on that. That's really your call. But the FathomNet database can ingest all of those resolutions. Garrett, I think I can quickly answer your question. You can use FathomNet models for your application, but something that we really want to work on or suggest is that, if you are using models to help grow and, to help and, continue improving like, let's say the health of this ecosystem, one of the things I think is really important is thinking about ways that you can perhaps give back to the FathomNet program. So, that might be making your models available if you were to retrain them, even if you can't make your training data available, let's say. But Kevin, I know we'll go over some of those details in the models session. And am I out of time, Izzy? I'm not paying attention.
Yes, we should probably move into the next, but we're capturing all of these questions so we can make sure that they get answered. Thanks, everybody.